2 days ago, the Boston Celtics traded Jaylen Brown, a Finals MVP, 28 points a game last season, and they traded him for a 36-year-old Paul George and some draft picks that won't matter until 2028. And everybody's arguing about basketball, fit, trade, value, analytics. Nah, let me decode this for you. Because the late John Thompson, the first black head coach to win an NCAA championship, explained this exact trade over 25 years ago, word for word. Watch this.
The thing that I find that's a myth in America is an educated athlete. I don't believe anybody in America who's in business wants athletes to be educated if they intend on doing business with that athlete.
Stop. Run that back. A myth in America is an educated athlete. Now think about who's saying this. John Thompson built Georgetown into a black basketball dynasty in the 80s. He kept a deflated basketball on his desk to remind his players, this thing will go flat on you. Your mind won't. He graduated his players. He walked off the court in 1989, mid-game, on national TV, to protest Proposition 42. An NCAA rule that disproportionately strips scholarships from black athletes. So, when Big John says business doesn't want the educated athlete, he's not theorizing. He watched it happen to his own guys.
And the minute that athlete becomes educated, they're somewhat offended by it. Because now an educated athlete doesn't just say, yes, our boss, and sit there. He starts to question the system.
They're somewhat offended by it. Now hold that word, offended, and look at what happened to Jaylen Brown this week. Jaylen Brown, a 5-star recruit who turned down Kentucky, North Carolina, and Kansas to go to Cal Berkeley for the academics, and here's what they left out. Before the 2016 draft, NBA scouts anonymously flagged him as a risk because he was, their words, too smart. Too smart. That was listed as a red flag. His draft stock question not for his game, but for his mind. Thompson's thesis, proven before Jaylen ever played an NBA minute. Youngest player ever voted a vice president of the Players Union, an MIT Media Lab fellow. He started a program to get Boston kids into science and tech. He left Nike and built his own shoe company, 741, because he said the sneaker industry underpays the athletes who move the product. And literally this week, the same week they traded him, MIT named him a fellow at their entrepreneurship center. That is the most educated athlete in the league, by any measure. So what did the media actually say about him? Here's Colin Kaepernick, citing anonymous sources. Watch.
Say that Jaylen Brown it's a disease. He suddenly thinks he's the smartest guy in every room he's in.
A disease. They didn't say he can't hoop. He averaged 28 points a game last season, mostly without Jason Tatum. He's got a Finals MVP. They said being smart out loud is a disease. That's not analysis. That's the offense Thompson was talking about. The educated athlete doesn't just say yes, so the system diagnoses him.
And so now when you get guys like Patrick and Alonzo and Dikembe, and I was very proud because every time they got out of the car, the Georgetown guys were jumping up. But we had been arguing and fussing all the time about everything. I didn't always agree with every position that they took, even as it related to the lockout. But I was proud of the fact that now they're using their intelligence. Well,
this is the part they left out. You know when Thompson said this? Around the 98-99 NBA lockout. Patrick Ewing, Thompson's guy at Georgetown, was president of the Players Union during that lockout. Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo, Georgetown men, were right there in the fight. The owners locked the players out, and Ewing stood at the front of the room and refused to fold. And what happened to Patrick Ewing? The media turned him into a punchline, painted him as greedy, out of touch the problem, and within about a year of leading that fight, after 15 seasons, New York shipped him out. The Knicks never held the grudge the way they retired his jersey. Lead the resistance, get moved. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. And Thompson watched it happen to his own player.
But the educated athlete, you're going to have problems. You're going to have lockouts, you're going to have boycotts, and people don't want that to happen.
You're going to have problems. Now run the pattern, because it's older than Jaylen and older than Ewing. Muhammad Ali questioned the system, stripped of his title, banned from boxing in his prime. Craig Hodges hand-delivered a letter to the White House about economic justice in 1991. Out of the league within a year. Never signed again. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf prayed during the anthem, suspended, then quietly disappeared from the NBA in his prime. Colin Kaepernick knelt, hasn't taken an NFL snap since 2016. And Jaylen Brown, Union VP, MIT fellow, who called out the media's anonymous source machine, who said he was snubbed from all NBA for being controversial. 48 hours later, Boston packed him up, his words, and traded him for 40 cents on the dollar. That's not my number. That's what the Boston Globe called it. They'll tell you it was basketball. But the Globe's own column spent half its ink on Jaylen being incapable of staying off the internet, questioning ESPN, questioning the narrative, questioning the system. Thompson told you the educated athlete is a problem, not because he can't play, because he won't just say yes. Here's what I need you to sit with. America loves the idea of the educated athlete. Stay in school, get your degree, be a role model. But the moment that education activates, the moment the athlete reads his own contract, questions his own coverage, builds his own company, organizes his own labor, the same people who preached education call it a disease, arrogance, a distraction, controversial, because the education was never supposed to be used. It was supposed to be decoration. John Thompson decoded that in the 90s. Jaylen Brown is living it right now. And the fact that a clip from 25 years ago describes this week's news, beat for beat, that's not history repeating. That's a system running exactly as designed. They didn't teach you this in school. That's why I'm here. Drop a comment. What other athletes got labeled a problem the minute they got smart? I might decode one of them next. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the pattern only works if you don't see it. Cipher with Malik. Know your history.